We've had 3 excellent reports addressing the Pentagon's resourcing process come out all within a couple weeks of each other. We're fortunate to have representatives from each of the reports here with us today. Let's start with a quick overview of Competing in Time by Dan Patt and Bill Greenwald. The authors motivate us by showing how cycle times for the development of military aircraft has dramatically increased since the 1960s. And the same thing is going on in missiles as in aircraft. And the same story for ships. Meanwhile, in the commercial sector, time from incorporation to an operational product remains under 5 years. In the 1960s and before, defense systems were developed in roughly 5 years. Decision time today is much longer. In the best case, using middle tier and other transactions, cycle time is 7 years. For business as usual, cycle time is anywhere from 9 to 26 years. The problem is that China is following rapid and iterative development strategies akin to the commercial sector. The US used to use development strategies in a similar way, as exemplified by the B-52, which had rapid, early design iterations, evolving performance, and quick production sequences. The authors point to the planning, programming, budgeting, execution process as a key factor. They write, "To address lengthy decision timelines that fundamentally limit adaptability, the PPBE must be revisited. Put simply, we need a more flexible programming and budgeting model that prioritizes delivery of operational capability and permits hedging and learning." The key concept is that of a portfolio, which takes similar program line items and groups them together. The authors discuss logical methods for grouping elements. First, by capability area, like ships or aircraft. Second, by organization, like program executive offices. And third, by mission area, like ensuring freedom of navigation in the Taiwan Straits. The authors don't see a one-size-fits-all answer and view the mission area budgeting as perhaps a combatant command responsibility to address the seams left behind by capability, organizational, and other types of portfolio budgets. Let's now take a look at the final report of the National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence. While the report is wide-ranging, it touches on a number of important aspects of the budget process. The report recommends the Secretary of Defense establish a dedicated AI fund as a pilot under the management of USD R&E of about $200 million. It also recommends that the DepSecDef accelerate efforts to implement portfolio management to requirements and budget, including a test pilot for joint capability areas such as command and control, and even seeks to align those portfolios with a program executive office or other organizational entity. But that's not it. The report asked the DepSecDef to propose another pilot to test mission-focused budgeting and appropriations in coordination with the combatant commands that considers more flexible funding mechanisms and new metrics for oversight. It also supports the continuation of Budget Activity 8 for software and digital technologies. Here's Chairman of the NSCAI, Eric Schmidt's testimony to the Senate Armed Services Committee in February 2021. Although we've had 50 years of acquisition reform, we have not meaningfully changed the PPBE process developed in the 1960s. Congress and the Defense Department need to work together to immediately authorize and fund pilots and set the stage for more sweeping reform.
There's a number of problems with it. One has to do with its design cycle. If there's something called the POM, or Program of Record, there is a 2-year planning cycle ahead of actually approving anything. So if you want to do something new, you have to plan it, and then it starts 2 years from the time you get, because that's when you get the money for it.
Warfighters. We have to come together also to reform the planning, programming, budgeting, and execution process. Congress is providing.
Let's now take a look at MITRE's 5x5 report, authored by Matt McGregor, Dan Ward, and Pete Modigliani. The authors present 5 disciplines and 5 strategic initiatives, and 2 of the initiatives are most relevant to our discussion. To introduce portfolio management, the authors start with a graphic from the FY21 budget request that presents strategic capabilities. They find it a good starting point for portfolios. They show how the strategic capability budgets, shown on the interior, can be broken down into roughly 40 mission area portfolios. Let's dig deeper into the aircraft set of capabilities. The authors show that the basic elements of the aircraft portfolios correspond to major organizational units like program executive offices. Each mission area portfolio, like Air Force Combat Aircraft, would be owned by an organization like PEO Fighters and Advanced Aircraft, which currently manages a set of programs. The PEO would have flexibility to reallocate funds without congressional prior approval, but will still provide regular updates on movements. Budgets and execution will still be tracked at the Program Budget Activity Code level, providing insight to stakeholders and oversight. To summarize, the authors recommend that we align DoD and Congress on military strategy, deliver capabilities using portfolio budgeting, increase flexibility to shift resources between efforts, avoid budget lock-in mechanisms such as new starts and full funding requirements, improve oversight by focusing on value rather than acquisition program baselines, use Budget Activity 8 to remove arbitrary investment and expense categories for software efforts, and reduce process by moving to biennial budget cycles. For more background on PPBE and budget reform, visit acquisitiontalk.com/budget reform.